Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I want to welcome everybody to our webinar. We at Blue Ridge Bank feel that it's very, very important to make sure our clients and customers are made aware of what's going on anything that can help their business, their personal financial wellness. And so we started this webinar series in order to make sure that we're providing opportunities to always learn and grow and build off of what we can learn from experts out in the field. And we've got a very exciting webinar for you today on a topic that certainly we're all very, very involved with. So thank you for joining us on behalf of everyone here at Blue Ridge Bank. And it's now my pleasure to introduce to you Brooke Ullman, the Director of Marketing here at Blue Ridge Bank. Brooke, take it away.
Great. Thanks a lot, Steve. I appreciate it. So we have the honor to have a conversation here with Devin Smith of Active Digital. He and I spoke last night to prepare for this meeting, and we ended up talking for a long time and felt like we should have just recorded that conversation. So I'm looking forward to not only replicating some key pieces of it, but also expanding upon it. So looking forward to it. He's got some talking points to get us started, and I'm going to jump in here and there when he hits something that's really worth exploring. You're welcome to put your questions in the chat, but they will not show up for us until the end. So if you have a question that comes up along the way, go ahead and put it in there. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll take a look and see what we have. So always ask questions. It's what makes it dynamic, and you have a chance to talk to someone great like Devin. So thanks.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
I'm doing all right, actually. I'm doing all right. I love this topic. It's definitely something that I could nerd out on for sure. And having somebody else that's a professional to talk about these topics is always good. So I'm in a good mood. How about you?
Wonderful. Yes, I'm great now that all my technology is working.
Yeah, right before this meeting, we found out that there was a couple of little glitches, but that always happens, right? You have to roll with it. That's the world we live in.
That's
Agility.
right. That's right. So yeah, I'm excited about talking about digital marketing, just because I think that we're going to take a slightly different approach to it today. A lot of folks, when they hear digital marketing, they're probably thinking, okay, we're going to talk about social media marketing. We're going to talk about search engine marketing. We're going to talk about all that stuff, and we will touch on those things. I want to back us up though, to think about our customer, and just where their needs are, how you can fit into their life, and understanding them better, so that when you do actually market to them in places online, that you are speaking their language, that you are meeting them where they are, and their response to that is, hey, they get me, they understand what I'm trying to do, right? um, that's kind of what I wanted to get into today. I think that there's a concept, that I want to introduce to people. When you think about somebody actually responding to a marketing message, if you think about yourself, you don't really respond to a marketing message unless they catch you at the moment that you are actually in the process in your life of trying to solve a problem in that area. You're trying to make progress in that area. What one of my mentors calls the struggling moment. If you're not having the struggling moment, as he says, there's not an opportunity to make the sale, right? And I am crazy enough to believe that marketers can begin to create the struggling moment with some of that marketing. You can introduce the idea that things could be better in a particular area, but there's so much available to us. Even with all of the privacy stuff that's happened here recently with Facebook and Apple and all of that, there's still a lot of data out there to tell us, what a person's interested in. When you're using your computer, you don't have the same level of privacy that you do on say your iPhone, and you're being tracked. When you go to Google and you go somewhere else, they're collecting that data, they're selling it to other people. So when you search for a particular thing, uh, Google's saying, "Hey, Devin over here," and they won't say the person's name, they won't identify them, but they have enough data to where they can triangulate you, and they probably know what you had for breakfast that morning. you know.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm reading a book right now, and it was talking about the creepiness factor that we have with things. And when I talk to other search engine marketing vendors, we always use the word creepy because it's both useful and fascinating, but it's also slightly creepy. I mean, there are things, there's ways of watching what you're doing that you're not even aware of. And in the book I was reading, it was talking about the khaki pants, how you did the mistake of looking up a pair of khaki pants and now they're following you everywhere. Now they're on Facebook. Now it's on a sidebar ad. Now you're in a Google search and it's showing you this picture, these khaki pants. You're reading a news article. There they are again. The khaki pants are following you everywhere. And it was talking about how, as marketers, you've got to find that pivotal point between finding people, but not creeping them out and stalking them like a pair of khaki pants.
Yes, yes, that's absolutely right. And I mean, all of us have had the moment where we got an ad for something that we were just talking to somebody in our house about, but we didn't
Yes.
search for it yet.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that they're recording us. They swear that they're not. Um, uh, it's happened too many times for it's not coincidence. It is not coincidence. I'm not going to say they're recording us, but there's some sort of sorcery there.
Yeah. I
um,
agree. We've already done that when we've had a couple of friends over for a social hour. One of us will kind of repeat throwing out just like a crazy phrase like parrot food. I've been really looking for a certain kind of parrot food. And then we wait to see how many days before it suddenly starts showing up on things. Yeah.
it's too many people, too many people saying it's happening. That I've been told that the data is just that good that they knew you were going to talk about it before you even mentioned it.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I don't
but
know either.
I think that um being able to inject the thought, using some of that data to know that somebody's in a phase of life, right? Like we know that if we're looking up, for instance, we're out there looking up tips on how to put together a crib, then every marketer out there knows you're about to have a baby, and
I was going to absolutely use the baby one as a great example because I had my first child 15 years ago, right? And technology, and the point of my story is that technology has evolved even since then, but it was impressive when we did a baby registry through Target. And then we would get emails from Target, and they were stage of life, oh, you registered on this date. So now we know that your child is now a toddler. So you must be looking for teething things, and now it's been a year, so now you're looking for shoes. And then I had a second kid, uh and then after the second kid, those things got so evolved, it started sending me, oh, baby formula, you must be having a third kid. And I thought, no, Target, now you've gone too far. We're done at two, we're not having a third, we don't need formula, just back off.
yes,
But
yeah,
but now we're able to actually really start to look at the individual too, right? Where now it's not just a blanket algorithm, an assumption that you've had two this many years apart, you must be having a third. Now we're actually able to follow the individual and what he or she might really be doing. That's that
right. And
creepy factor.
that's the creepy factor there. I mean, it's great for marketers. It helps you spend less dollars and spend more targeted dollars on people who are a good fit. um but knowing where that person is really, what that's about is knowing where that person is in their journey, knowing where they are in the journey of solving that problem. And a thing that I'm big about is understanding what that problem is. Big subscriber to something called the theory of jobs to be done. It was created by two gentlemen, Clayton Christensen, one of the most famous Harvard business professors ever. He passed away a couple of years ago, which I hate because I wanted to get to interview him on my show.
Mhm.
He was loved by many, and Bob Mesta. It basically it states that people don't buy products and services; they hire them to do a job in their life. And it's our job as marketers, as product creators, as business people, to understand what that job is. What job are they trying to do? What are they trying to make
Right.
progress on? And when you understand that, you can offer solutions that the prospect or the customer didn't think about. When you understand the progress that they're trying to make, and when I talk about reading minds, right? When I talk about I know I had a funny title for this, better digital marketing through mind reading. That's really what I'm talking about, is being able to read the customer's mind and to understand the way that they think about their problem in their language.
Yeah.
You have to talk to people. There's an element of qualitative, that one-on-one research. Just spend some time talking to people. And I'll give some tips later on how to have those conversations.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That'd be
understanding
great.
that job, you can figure out, okay, this is the job, this is what they're trying to make progress on, this is the marketing language that I need to use. um, it helps you understand what they're thinking, so that you may be able to, a lot of people will tell you, oh, if you're B2B, you don't need to be on Instagram. That's not necessarily true, right? uh, uh, Everybody, we're both in B2B spaces, but we both have, I'm sure we both have Instagram accounts, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're on Instagram.
Right.
What is appropriate to bring up to somebody on Instagram? Sure. Like, there's the question of, do you want to advertise a certain thing on Instagram? Most of the time it's fine. I get B2B advertisements on Instagram, and I'm not angry about it, right? And they know me well, right? The advertisements that I get, they're advertising project management software to me, specifically for marketers and creative people, and designers. They know me very well. They track the khaki pants are following me all over the place, right? But understanding that job tells you what to say.
Yeah.
It tells you what to say in that marketing. I've been amazed at how good and how targeted that marketing has gotten, to where I've
Yeah.
clicked on it. There was a time where I almost never clicked on an online ad, and I found myself clicking on them more because they're getting better at bringing up stuff that actually matters to me, and
Yeah.
so I'm not upset by it.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. There was definitely some assumptions on, oh, if you're reading this source, I don't have an example right off the cuff, but if you got into like politically leaning sites or whatever, or even if you said, oh, this person's clicking on ESPN and reading about football, therefore they must love everything about football, and it's like, well, no, not necessarily. Now it's getting a little bit more in tune with the individual. Oh, well, now actually this person is, you know, um, currently in school and they're into these kinds of collegiate level activities, and he or she enjoys the outdoors, and it kind of gets to a like more of a specific thing with you. I think some of that stuff is really honestly fascinating, and it's available. It's just a matter of finding a way to find the right tools to harness it and then to implement it. And I think the other thing that for me in marketing has been that conversation with the company to understand that let's meet the individual, the human. Like, let's get outside of, you know, I'm obviously with Blue Ridge Bank. So let's move away from a little bit more of that detailed banker speak. Like, what are they really trying to achieve? Who are they really? Let's just, shake off some of the terminology and the numbers games. And yes, that's how it's always been, or that's how competitors do it. But like, really, how do you reach that person with what it is that they're looking for? And do they know that you do it? And do they know how to find it? Because honestly, we've done this ourselves with some search engine marketing where, if I asked everyone in here, um, one of our service offering is commercial financing. Well, we did a search engine thing, and that term was number 5 on the list. Most people were using the term business. And so that's the kind of research you find out from this, right? Is that people don't want to necessarily have those 50-cent words sometimes. Sometimes they just want to go right down to the basics. They want to simplify it. Just tell me what it is I need to know. Don't make me work for it. Yeah.
That's right. And it really, there's some timeless marketing wisdom from David Ogilvy, the famous
Oh
David
yeah.
Ogilvy. One of the things he used to say is if you wouldn't say it out loud, don't write it. If it doesn't sound like something you would actually say, it's not good copy. And it's true. It's true. And that I find myself, I was writing some marketing copy last night, and I asked myself the question. I looked at the headline and I said, would I actually say that out loud? And the answer was no, I wouldn't say that out loud. I need to stop using MBA speak.
Yes, it's funny that you say that because when I just took a business communications course in grad school, and that teacher was definitely hitting our knuckles with a ruler. The words, nobody says the word utilize, nobody says the word leverage. Don't use those words. You used it. Don't try to, impress people with these amazing long words. Just say what it is. Be totally frank. And it was really funny because sometimes there's that fear factor of, oh, I need to sound like a professional. I need to sound as if I'm operating at a higher level, as if I am this knowledge center. And yes, you are, but you don't have to intimidate people with it. You have to instead recognize that, hey, I'm a professional and I know everything back here, but I'm also able to work with you at a comfortable pace, and you can tap into that knowledge, but I'm not going to scare you with it.
That's exactly right. And I think that one thing to help us kind of help us understand how to do that. I've got an example actually of how to kind of put yourself in that mindset of I'm going to talk to a person based on the way that they're thinking about it and their language, right? Not my professional marketer speak. I'm going to speak to them in their language. I'll illustrate this to make it a little more fun. Um, but the way that I think about this is, there you can have a situation where you've got a person who wants to make dinner for their wife, right? As a marketer, we're trying to find out exactly, what they what they want to cook, et cetera. We're trying to find out, if you find out that somebody's searching for freshly online, or something to that effect. The hard part really is, we need to ask the question, what exactly, why does that person want to make dinner for their wife? You can ask the question, all right, so they're looking at freshly, they're thinking about getting a box there, comes with all the ingredients and all that. And this guy is like, okay, if they give it to me in a box, I can't screw this up. They tell me what to do. I'm gonna get a nice glass of wine. Like it's gonna be a nice evening. Now, what a person who is using the theory of jobs to be done is going to do, they're going to ask this person, well, why do you want to make dinner for your wife? And the guy may say, well, it's our anniversary, etc. Just because he's looking up freshly or looking up recipes, doesn't mean he likes to cook, right? There's all kinds of assumptions we can make at every stage before we understand the causal factors, because that's really what it's all about. It's about
Right.
understanding the causal factors, what causes somebody to buy.
Right.
And so he's trying to look up freshly because he wants to make dinner for his wife. You ask him why. It's like, well, it's our anniversary. Okay, it's your anniversary. What were you trying to achieve by making dinner for your wife? Well, he wants to be thought of as a thoughtful husband. He wants to be thought of as a thoughtful husband, right? That is the ultimate goal. Um, well, if you know this, if say you're in the business of um you're in the business of selling flowers, or you're in the business of maybe you have a bed and breakfast, right?
Right.
um if you have done the work to say, all right, a lot of these people who are actually out here looking up freshly, some of these folks out here are, if we are looking, if we're triangulating the other things that they're searching for, you figure out that they're doing this for a special occasion. They're not doing this
Right.
because they're trying to cut down on how much time it takes to cook dinner. This
Right.
is for a special occasion. It's easy to find out if it's a male or a female generally. um, you can say, okay, he wants to be a thoughtful husband. He doesn't have to cook her dinner to be a thoughtful husband. There are lots of solutions to that problem, right? There are lots of solutions to that problem. You could
Yeah.
you
Clean
you
my
could
house.
That's right.
That's
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. So all right, so Brooke, what are some other things that you think you wish your husband would do? It's like, okay, it's fine, you cook dinner, but like this thing would have also worked. What are some of those things
right.
that
Oh, you want me to list something
yeah,
else?
give me
Oh, you do?
give me some
Oh,
stuff
okay.
here.
Yeah, honestly, it's those kinds of things around the house. But finally fixing something that we've been asking for it to get fixed. Or what if they took me out shopping, right? I never take the time to go shopping. Or to have a nice getaway, like you said, a bed and breakfast, arranging some sort of outing, buying a concert tickets to something that we
Yep,
wanted to see.
yep. Concert tickets, yeah, those sorts of things. I found with my wife, I realized I don't have to go and buy the most expensive thing.
No.
Um, she just wants to spend time
Yeah,
with me.
yeah,
But for the first many years that we were married, I thought like, oh man, it's Valentine's Day, or anniversary. I got to go buy, some expensive jewelry, and she's like, you didn't have to do this, but he doesn't. Maybe he hates cooking, right? Maybe he
right,
hates cooking,
right,
but going to a concert sounds awesome. Or what I've found is that there are competitive sets, right? Because the Freshly folks don't necessarily know that they're competing with concert tickets. That's the other power. That's the other
right,
superpower of this. When you can read the customer's mind by actually having these conversations, asking these questions, and doing some research, you understand what the real competitive set is. The people at Freshly generally are never thinking they're competing with concert tickets. They're not thinking they're competing with a bed and breakfast. They're not
right,
thinking about that. Maybe they are. If they're using job theory, maybe they are. But um, if you're doing this, you can understand that there's a competitive set that is in this particular person's mind because they have a particular job to be done. When you start to change the competitive set to not be based on the product, or the service, don't base the competitive set on the product or the service. Don't base the competitive set on things like demographic, right? So like age, ethnicity, um, that sort of stuff. That sort of stuff is, unfortunately, it gives you correlation, doesn't give you causation, right? We can say, all right, this person is 35. They're Caucasian. They make, $100,000+ a year. So that must mean that they want these things. And there can be some corollary information, but when you're looking at this particular situation, if you know that, when you know the job, it's much easier to triangulate. Okay, there's a lot of things that, uh, uh, John Doe here could do to be thought of as a thoughtful husband. And we're not just competing with other subscription food boxes, or other ways to make dinner. We're competing with concert tickets. We're competing with bed and breakfast. We're competing with, a night on the town, et cetera, or somebody coming to clean the house.
right.
We're competing with all of those things. I'll give one more. I'll give one more example. The famous example is milkshakes, right? Um, Bob Messa and his team, they were called in to help a international fast food chain figure out how to sell more milkshakes. Trying to figure out how to sell more milkshakes, and the company was doing things like making the chocolate taste more intense, making it thicker, changing the packaging, and they would see
Yeah.
the needle move a little bit or not at all, but they never saw any meaningful growth. And so they called Bob Mess's firm, and we've done everything. We can't figure this out. And so they decided, all right, we're gonna use jobs theory on this. So what they did is they looked at the sales data, and they saw a couple of interesting things. They were selling a ton of milkshakes in rush hour. Not nine, 7 a.m., 7 a.m. to maybe 9 a.m. They're selling a ton of milkshakes during that time, right? Super weird. I
Yeah.
I never buy a milkshake in the morning.
Yeah, that's usually my coffee time, but maybe I need to reevaluate.
Exactly, right. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Milkshake does sound better than coffee, but they noticed the other time was in the afternoon, maybe around 3 o'clock. So they're selling milkshakes, and they don't understand why they're selling milkshakes. They just know it's happening. So what the team decides to do is to actually go on location and ask customers as they're leaving the restaurant, what why'd you buy that milkshake? And they would even ask them specifically, what job did you hire that milkshake to do in your life? And they got some very interesting answers. But they all the folks in the morning all had pretty much the same answer. I have an hour long commute to work. I'm bored in the car, and by the time I get to work, I'm already hungry. I
Wow.
ate my breakfast before I left, and I need something that's going to keep me full. And I tried a bunch of things. I tried banana, tried a banana, but the banana really didn't last long. Didn't do the job, right? I was
Yeah.
hungry. I was hungry by 11 o'clock, and I ate my lunch. And then when lunchtime came, I didn't have any lunch. Uh, they tried a bagel, but it turns out the bagel is really hard to put the cream cheese on in the car. I just, I figured that people, if they were in the car, they wouldn't try to put the cream cheese on, but they were trying to put the cream cheese on because what's the bagel without the cream cheese, right? Um,
I mean,
uh,
people put on mascara, they're plucking eyebrows, they're doing all kinds of things in the cars.
I live in Atlanta. I've seen some things. I've seen some things at 90 miles an hour, mind you.
Yes.
Um, but they they got some interesting, when they phrased it that way, what did you hire the milkshake to do in your life? When they phrased it that way, it opened up people's ability to communicate with them. They were able to tell them things that they wouldn't be able to tell by the typical survey questions that they would get asked, or the typical research questions they would get asked. When they asked them that question, they're like, oh man, like, I tried to use donuts, but I felt super guilty about eating, donuts in the morning. I tried a Snickers bar, felt really, really guilty about eating candy. So I just couldn't go back home to my husband or my wife and tell them I ate a Snickers bar before I even got to work. And so they felt guilty about that. But the milkshake was, they tried the milkshake, and it took them the entire car ride. It was super thick, so it was hard to draw through the straw, and they had something that was stimulating, so they didn't fall asleep. They weren't bored, and it just was this oddly appropriate thing to solve the problem on the way to work. And so they started buying milkshakes, and it turns out a ton of people had the same idea. So what does the
Wow.
fast food chain do?
Yeah.
They start marketing to commuters. They start marketing to
Yeah.
commuters about the milkshake. They start making it to where they can get in and out of the restaurant with the milkshake as quickly as possible. They make the straw so that it's easier to draw the milkshake through the straw, so they don't have to work as hard. And they make they make the milkshakes thicker.
Yeah.
And so then and those are the kinds of things that get results
Yeah.
because they understood the customer. And that's what I'm talking about here. When you understand those things, then you can say, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and I'm going to advertise. Uh, uh, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and advertise to John Doe, who's trying to make dinner for his wife. I am actually going to go and I'm gonna advertise on LinkedIn that you're really busy. You want to be a thoughtful husband. How about you take her to our bed and breakfast, and it's something that they're speaking to the fact that you're speaking to context. You're on LinkedIn. You're respecting the fact they're a business professional, but you're speaking to that context. And John Doe may very well say, yeah, I really hate cooking. Like if I take her to a bed and breakfast, there's zero chance I screw this up. I'm going to do that instead. That's what tells you how to use these platforms and to get the message right. Because you can actually, if you get the message right, the platform, you've got some leeway on the platform. You've got some leeway on the context that you
Yeah.
bring the message.
Yeah, I
But
think
if
a
you
lot of times the focus is on how, like, where are we reaching people? That's a conversation that I've had in more recent years in different industries of, oh, we need to hit them with more e-newsletters. Oh, we need to hit them with more Facebook posts. Oh, we need to update our website. And it's like you got to stop back and sit there and pose the question of, do you go to those channels to find that information? I recently had a conversation about that when it seems very easy to get very tactical quick, right? Because that's what we know. That's easier. We've done it before. We know that it works, right? It's easy to get into the tactics, but if you go back up to the top level of, okay, but what are we trying to achieve and for who? What are they doing? And in the banking world, there's so many different ways that people can actually do banking. And some people really love to be in person. They have a relationship with their person, they know them. Visiting them is visiting an extended family member, right? I have personal relationships with people, my auto mechanic, my hairdresser, these people I know, my dentist. These are people that I know, and because they're part of my network, right? And I see them all the time. And so some of these people I love to see. And then some other times and some other things I do, I don't really have that relationship. And I just do it through the online vehicle. I don't have a relationship with Dominion Power, right? I deal with them every day. My power's on, and when my power's off, I'm really upset. But my relationship with them is through my phone, and I do everything on with them through my phone, including saying that the power is down. I never talk to anybody over there. So, you got to think about your customer and how they interact with you and what they're doing and whatnot. And so, yeah, taking to social media with a message, it could work, but is that where they are? Where are they interacting with you? How are they trying to find you? For um one of the examples, again, using banking, obviously, because Blue Ridge Bank, the touch points most people can, all rally around is your statement, right? Most people get one, either paper or virtually. Or, what about when they go to an ATM? Or what about when they go through a drive-through, right? It's more than just physically talking to that person. It can be all these other things too. So yeah, it's funny. We do as humans tend to jump right into thinking of, oh, the ways you got to reach people. You have to have a website. You have to have an ad. You have to, no, actually, there's some companies that don't do any advertising. Any advertising. Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's doesn't do any advertising, and yet I bet most people have heard of one, and what they've heard about it is that their friend or family member loves Trader Joe's, and you're kind of curious if you haven't been. And what is it that they're doing, right? So
That's
I'm
right.
getting a
No,
little off
that's
track with
exactly
the
right.
marketing,
No,
but I
I
think, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that. I mean, that Trader Joe's example. You're exactly right. I mean, they're my big passion is customer experience. What they're doing, they're creating a great customer experience, and that does a lot of the marketing for them. And yeah, you're right. They don't, but they get they understand the job, and they incorporate it into the whole experience.
And I love what you just said right there too, right? I think traditionally the term marketing means there is a way that you push out information through a vehicle, it reaches somebody and they react, right? And I think that formula has certainly evolved and is continuing to evolve, right? Marketing is now able to perform at a level of, like you said with your milkshake example, right? You touched on two things. One, the changing of the product, right? They realized that people are in the car, let's make a bigger straw. Let's make it thicker. Let's, they changed their product for this persona, this group of people that's coming to them. And then they also changed how and when they promote it. So they also changed their business model. Wow. I mean, that's totally different. That's not traditional marketing, right? Marketing is no longer this, hey, we're selling this thing. Here's our logo. Go get it. You want it. No, it's baked in down to the how you talk to people and what you do and all those touch points. And you and I did actually talk about this last night, and I threw out the whole design thinking piece of it, which is the revolution of the product itself, right? Just and it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to sit back and go, wow, see, people aren't really buying this anymore. Let's stop selling it. No, no, no. No, find out how they're using it, find out what more it could do, and then maybe tweak how you talk about it or even tweak the product itself. And I mean tweak. Sometimes it's really tiny little changes that make it go to a whole other platform. I know that I have seen things, just picking on other little examples are and these are silly examples, but that's how silly it can be for design thinking, right? Think about when you go and you buy candy and you would get a Twix, right? It came in a big candy wrapper. It's one whole Twix. I'm sure that that company did some studies with people, and people said, you know what? Sometimes I just want a little nibble, or sometimes I like to crunch it and put it on my as a topping on my ice cream. And somebody sat back and said, you know what? We should put little ones in a bag. And somebody probably thought, that's crazy. They can just get it out of the bar. Well, yeah, but actually, it turns out that the way our customers are using it is they're wanting smaller bite-sized pieces that they can open up a bag and put it away and nibble throughout the week, or they're putting it on an ice cream topping. That's the piece of marketing that is really where we need to go because like you said, how are you using this product? And how do I need to change my thinking about it? And that's for everything that we do. That's why we see little tweaks on things all the time.
That's it. Yeah, you're exactly right. And that's really that's the way that people need to think about their marketing, and it stems from understanding what people want, and those little tweaks can be a big deal. Sometimes somebody just has to have what the product is for reframed in their mind. You
Yeah.
know,
Like you said with the milkshake. Now it's a breakfast item. We never knew this before.
Yep, and people are using it in ways that you didn't expect them to. I have a background in user experience design as well. Happens all the time. Behind the glass, watching people use the product, and you're like, "Well, I didn't think that people were going to do that."
Yeah.
And you can't knock on the glass and say, "Hey, you're using it wrong," right?
Right.
you you adapt to what they're doing. Febreze was an example that was given. Um, in one of the books that I read, they realized that they were able to sell Febreze more successfully to people when they made it a part of a routine.
Mm,
When they reframed Febreze as being a part of a routine, that you got
okay.
done cleaning a room and you spray some Febreze, and that means that the room is clean. And
Ah,
it's a part of the reward that, like, I just cleaned this and now the room smells clean. There's a
hmm,
scent that I associate with something being clean now. And
yeah.
the stuff started flying off the shelves.
Huh.
So that's another part of it. And so I think that just to give people some practical application here, when you have this knowledge, and you're trying to decide, okay, I know this, where do I reach them? Some of the stuff we already talked about. To get the message right, you get the message right, the context, you got some leeway there. If you get the message wrong, there's no leeway. It doesn't matter
Right.
where you put it. You're not going to get the leeway. You're not going to get traction. But when you think about where to put your message, you got to think about where they already hanging out, right? Understand them enough to know where they're already hanging out, and obviously you want to lead with that. You want to target your marketing where they're already spending time. So if you know this particular group tends to spend a lot of time on Facebook, then that's where you advertise. You got a lot of people saying, well, it's not worth it to advertise on Facebook the way that it was before. It's like, maybe we can say that on macro level you don't get as much bang for your buck, But if your people are there, that may not be true for you and your customers, your
Right.
target market. And
Right.
so that understanding tells you where to place your bets, as it were. Um, the other thing that I would tell people is, provide value before they buy the product. I'm a big believer in putting out content. Not just doing the traditional outbound, like, hey, we're going to push a marketing message to you, but providing content to help them make a decision. Going back to the example of wanting to be a thoughtful husband, write some blog articles, make a YouTube video about things that might make your wife happy, right? Like those sorts of things. Guys wind up seeing that stuff, right? And that it could be a part of your brand. You show up in the search results, um, uh,
Yeah.
and also don't depend too much when you're doing content marketing, because it can be very powerful, and people recognize when you're giving them value and not asking for anything immediately in return, or you're not
Yeah.
demanding something in advance of that value. Don't depend completely on external platforms. So I know I literally just said go where they're already hanging out, and generally that's going to be somebody else's platform. But use that as a ramp to have them get to your own platform. Invest in having your blog on your own site. Invest in having videos embedded on your own site. Your own email list, that's huge. Once you're able to actually capture someone, say they clicked on a link on LinkedIn or on YouTube, and you have them go to your website, capture, do your best to capture that email. You're going to get a ton of engagement from people if they are willing to sign up for the email list. The
Mhm.
engagement that you're going to get from them is going to be so much greater than the engagement from somebody just seeing a marketing message out
Right.
there in the ether, right?
Right. Right.
And so building, you want to leverage the marketing. I use the word leverage. You want to leverage the marketing dollars that you're spending to make sure that they're getting multiples of ROI for you. So you're spending marketing dollars in advertising, but that's also leading to building the email list. And maybe they didn't buy today, but they do buy later, or maybe they
Right.
do buy today, but they also buy later.
Yeah.
So investing in your own property is also important.
Yeah, and again, to build a little bit off of that, not everyone's going to necessarily pull the trigger on some things, right? Khaki pants, you know, you want them, you have an event, it's a season, whatever else. But when it comes to, taking out, for again, going back to banking, it's my world. You sometimes you sit with it, right? You research it, you think about it, you kick the proverbial tires on it, you ideate a bit, and then you do it, right? I mean, some other decisions take a little while, and that's okay, right? And that's why it's also, don't always think about that you're not getting some immediate. It's hard. It's hard to connect those dots, right?
That's right.
Well, and
And
I yeah.
go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say we have 15 minutes or so, and we can take a look at the questions too. But please finish your thought, and then I'll take a look.
Sure, the thing that you were saying is just so important, about the process that somebody goes through in order to make a purchase. That there's usually there are several steps that a person usually goes through, and I recognize as soon as I saw it, right. Bob Mesta has what he calls the jobs to be done timeline. And it's just the timeline of somebody making a decision to pull something into their life. That's literally all it is. So we go through this phase of passive, sort of like first thought, right? Which is what we would call the struggling moment. That's what we would call the struggling moment. This could be better. I I don't like how this is going. I want a better way to solve this, or "Hey, this is I've been doing it this way, or this has been solving the problem to date, but I want to take it to the next level. Um, that struggling moment where somebody wants to go from point A to point B, that delta usually happens without them saying anything to anybody yet. That happens up in their head, right?
Right.
Hard for us to target that as marketers, right?
Yes.
Hard for us to target that. But what we can target is the next stage, is the passive looking stage. And that's usually when the Google searches are happening. That's when they're going on YouTube, which is the second biggest search engine in the world, right? They're going
Hmm.
on YouTube and they're looking things up. They're trying to understand what's out there. They're expanding their thinking to consider new solutions. That's when we can have the opportunity to start to get them on the map, right? But when they're in that passive looking stage, they're still early on. They're still going to have conversations with people. They're going to have conversations with peers. Um, they're gonna have conversations with people who might be solution providers, but they're not really telegraphing that they're looking for that yet, right?
Right.
Um, and then there's usually something that happens that pushes them into action, where they go from passive looking to active looking. It's like, okay, I'm solving this,
Yeah.
and that can look like something that is very immediate, but maybe that process was going on in their head for 2 years,
That's a
you
good
know.
point.
Uh, uh,
And that's
yeah,
a good point. I think a lot of people forget that too. I think it's just an evolution of where we are these days too. That because the points of meeting people with an advertisement were so direct. You go back to the 19 what 30s. We didn't have TVs. We the limited scope of how you reached people was through a newspaper or a radio ad. I mean, that was about it, right? And then you get the evolution of cards, and then you get billboards, and then you get the evolution of TVs, and you get TV ads, and you have the evolution of, the internet and the phone. And now we see so many things around. It's really hard to try to figure out what people are actually doing and what works and how it works. But I think the more you dig in on it, the more you talk to people, the more you learn about your products and how people are using your products or services, then you learn a little bit more about that. Well, let me hop on over and see if I have any couple of questions here. I do have a couple of sidebar questions from some folks that I have over here. How do you measure success with digital marketing? That is a great question, right? You just said that, you know, somebody might have sat there with that thought for a while. How do you measure that it's been working?
that's great. That's a great question. So, um, ultimately, uh, ultimately, it's sales, right? For anybody who is a small business owner, they're like, yeah, no, duh, it's sales, right? For folks who may work at larger companies that who work in marketing departments, they might be like, I don't want to be responsible for revenue, but that's the ultimate measure, really, is whether it's leading to sales. The trouble is attribution. How do we track that the marketing thing that we were doing is actually responsible in part? Generally, it's not in whole. It's almost never in whole responsible for a purchase.
Right.
Um, Almost nothing is generally responsible in whole for a purchase, but uh, the the um the way that you can measure that is essentially talking to people and understanding, okay, hey, like, you and we, I know that we have the survey questions. We ask, how'd you hear about us? They make the purchase. We ask how they heard about us.
Right.
um One of the issues is that generally what we can tend to do as marketers is we can fail to or as companies, period, right, as business people, we can fail to include all the possibilities. Make sure that if you're doing that, that you have another option, and they can put that in, because um, what I'm finding now, and some of the people that I follow, who I think are great marketers, they're saying, stop thinking that you're gonna be able to track this straight back to that Facebook ad. Stop
Right.
thinking that's gonna how it's gonna happen. Because even if they did click the Facebook ad, and they didn't buy, and then they came back 2 years later, it might have been that they listened to your podcast. Might be that they wound up hearing about you from somebody else, and they got the impression from the Facebook ad or the
Yeah.
YouTube ad or whatever. Um, or the billboard, the TV ad. But what actually pushed them over the threshold was a conversation with somebody, was seeing somebody else with the product, and
Yeah.
you want to capture those things. You want to be able to capture that stuff. And so it's all there. But I hate to make it that simple. But the way that you really measure that success is whether you're engaging in certain activities and you're seeing an increase in sales. And I don't want to say that because I don't it's hard to pinpoint marketing and say, okay, aren't increasing and it's all marketing's fault, right? Because that's the other thing that can happen.
Yeah.
And that's not what I'm saying to do.
Right.
That's why I say that, it's very seldom that one thing can be attributed to a sale. You
Yeah.
have to be able to take you look at the system, not just the component, right? um, you can have marketing that's bringing in leads, um,
Yeah.
but the leads don't convert. That could be marketing's fault that they're not getting quality leads, but it also could be sales' fault that they're not having the right conversation. They're not closing well. And I've been on both sides of that,
Yeah.
where I've been the marketer who's frustrated that the salespeople aren't closing, and I've been the sales guy who's mad that he got a bad lead. So you got to look at the whole thing and essentially look at the system, look at everybody is on the same team, and the measure is, are we selling more or are we selling less? And when we're
Yeah.
talking to people, what are the touch points that they remember? I generally recommend talking to people within 90 days of them making a purchase or them leaving. If they decide to buy something else, talk to them within 90 days
Right.
about why they switched.
Yeah.
If you got to offer them money to talk to them, that information is a gold mine, absolute gold mine.
Yeah.
So and I promised that I would give tips on how to have those conversations. You essentially want to treat it like you're filming a documentary. You want to understand what happened. When did you first think I got to make a change? And have them tell you the story. You're just asking questions to keep them talking and to give you more detail about how that whole story played out. Then what happened? Then what happened? Then what happened? What's that person's name? Why,
Right.
why did you care what they thought? Those sorts of things. You're an investigative a journalist at that point.
Usually when I have those conversations, I think about it like a therapist, right? You're not trying to give them any leading questions. It's supposed to be very, a lot of what you just said. It's a lot of and then what? Because you really want to reach that point and it's going to reach that point of where it's like quiet and you think that they're done talking, but you got to sit and you got to wait. And you want to listen to their stories and pull out of the story what their point was, because sometimes they hadn't even thought about it, right? If you talk to someone, why did you go to this other bank? Like, I don't know. It's closer to my house. And then you stop and you just let it go. Okay. And then they'll say, and I always go that way to work. Ah, okay. And then they'll say, and I go to work 5 days a week and it's right near my grocery store. And it turns out it's on my route and it's convenient. And actually, I talked to a neighbor and he goes there and he recommended it. And then the story starts to like really come together. And then you realize, oh, it's not just this one thing. You feel out the story, but you got to tease it out and you got to tease it out like a therapist. You can't just let them stop and say, "Oh, it's because of this," right? Like, okay, anything else? Heavy listening, heavy listening.
Yes,
I tend to
absolutely.
write down everything too. I mean, I've of course taken this to a whole other level too, where you get it out on post-it notes and you break it all down into a big board, which is the whole journey mapping, right? But yeah, really what it comes down to for beginner stage is a heavy listening and open receptiveness to the answer. They might tell you because I hate you.
Yeah.
Okay, and tell me more about that. Tell me
Yes.
why.
Yeah. It's
And you gotta listen. You gotta find out because it might be that they had a terrible touch point and it's something that you need to really address,
That's
right?
right. That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And have the emotional intelligence to be able to meet them where they are and to get them to open up. Don't get defensive. All that stuff. And I've had those conversations where I talk to people. It's like, hey, I thank you for giving me this time. I want to understand, what caused you to decide to go somewhere else. We're not holding it against you, but we want to understand how to be better. And when you actually care, you'd be surprised at how open people are to giving you information. Sometimes people don't want to say things that they consider mean. So you got to make it super safe for them
Yeah,
to say, like, I really didn't like when you guys did this. Like, you have to make it super safe for them to say that.
right.
But
Good point.
that helps you to go, and as a good marketer, go and talk to your product people, or if you're a small business owner, to change your service, to change your product, to change your message, to change the expectations you're setting, so that you're building your
You're
business.
right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's huge.
well, I want to give you a couple minutes. We have actually 4 more minutes until the top of the hour. So I wanted to give you a chance. You mentioned that you were going to give a little bit more tips on the JTBD, the jobs to be done. Um, did you have more to say about that?
Sure. So, essentially, I have a couple pieces of advice there. When we're talking about jobs to be done, research, like I said, it's all about understanding causal factors. So, we're really kind of getting into it there. It's just, being able to get in there, like a therapist, like an investigative journalist, like a detective, to get to the root of motivation, why somebody did something, and allowing them. What that does, it gives you why they did something in their language. My first advice would be, if you can, hire somebody like Active. Go find somebody like us, who can do that for you. If that's out of the question, then, like you said, don't ask leading questions. Go in there and really treat it like you're just trying to get the story. You want them to give all the details. You want to know names. You want to know the who, what, when, where, and why.
Okay.
And it usually takes doing that to get somebody to give all the information that tells you what they were thinking and why those things mattered to the ultimate decision. And when you know that, and you do, and I would say, you want to talk to anywhere from 5 to 20 people. That's what I would say. I think that
Yep.
you start to see patterns repeat at 5 people. You're really getting some good data
Yeah.
at talking to 15 people. 30 to
Okay.
45 minutes. That's all you need.
And I want to mention, in the last couple minutes, you had a little bit more on this topic on your podcast you wanted to mention.
Yes, yes. So, if people if people want to check out the podcast, I have a podcast called Experience Leader. It is sponsored by Active. It's all about really taking this holistic approach to customer experience that we've talked about here. We've talked about, it's not just about the message that you're pushing. Part of being a marketer is the stuff that's happening while they're using it. Being able to tweak the product. And so the podcast is really about exploring, how do we take our end-to-end customer experience, that whole journey, and make it better, so that we can
Right.
be the one out in front. That's what the whole name is about. How do you be the leader on the customer experience? Because those companies make more money, and everybody tells their friends about them, like Trader Joe's, right? So, the
It
podcast is trying to
works.
teach you how to do that. And I think episode 9, if you want to know more about how to do jobs to be done, you want to see it in action. I actually got the Grandmaster himself, Bob Mesta, to demonstrate how to conduct one of those interviews. And he gave us over an hour of his time. Highly, highly recommend
Oh, that's
checking
great.
out that
I
episode.
will definitely. I'll check it out. I know that. That's great. Well, it's been really great talking to you. You're easy to talk to. You have a lot of information. You're very experienced, as your podcast suggests. So hearing you talk was wonderful. So thank you so much for your time. And then for those that are here that wanted to share with a friend, or they wish they had jotted down some notes, this is going to be recorded and we will post it on our website, which is mybrb.bank. There's the easiest way to find it is to look through the search bar and type in webinars, and you'll find it that way. And then I also wanted to make a note that we will do this again in November. We are talking to a CPA professional who will be joining us on the topic of year-end tax planning. Thank you so much for today, Devin.
My pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
I'll be talking to you again, not through a webinar. We'll have to connect again.
Absolutely. Would love it. Would love it.
All right. Well, thank you for everyone who joined us today.